Walter, in 2020, you had a near-death experience in connection with an operation. Yes, the thing was that I've had problems with my throat for quite some time, especially inside the throat. I explained this to my family doctor, and after he had a look at it, he then recommended that I see a specialist for a further examination. So I then got an appointment, and they found that I had knots in my throat and that the thyroid gland was severely enlarged. A professor was there. He was the head of this department, and he said to me, "Mr. Steck, this is not simply an enlarged thyroid gland. It's already a goiter. But in your case, it has not grown toward the outside, but it was growing inside around your neck." We then very promptly agreed that in this case I needed to have surgery. And at the point in time agreed, I went into hospital on a Monday afternoon. There they once again did further examinations. I then went for a walk, and in the evening I went to bed. The next morning I arose at 6 a.m., and at 6:30 they took me to the operating room for surgery that indeed went rather swiftly. I was no longer aware of the surroundings, and I woke up later and was told that everything went well, and that I would be brought back to my room in the early afternoon, and so on. So I was happy, and in the afternoon 2 doctors came and said to me, "Mr. Steck, unfortunately, we have to operate on you again tonight." And when I asked what the matter was, they laid my hand on the relative spot on my throat, which made me realize that it felt like a filled hot water bottle there, like something liquid. And this was because I didn't bleed outwards, but inwards, so that the blood thus filled up. They then brought me a mirror where I could see from the chin to the bottom of my chest that everything was not blue but black and looked terrible. And so I stayed in the recovery room and was cared for by some specialists. And then everything went well until about 4 p.m., when everything started to get worse. I did not feel well anymore either, and the people around me who were aware of this were again and again facing me with quite worried faces, and this situation kept getting worse and worse. I then rang the bell and asked when it was my turn, because I didn't feel well and I could only see everything as if through a kind of nebula. In any case, I realized that I was not really feeling well when I asked them to come. So they then told me that my turn would be soon, and that they were currently operating on a 1-year-old baby. I fully understood that, and thereafter I was to be operated on. Then it went on that way, but nothing happened, and more people were standing around my bed. I was getting worse and worse, even though without pain, but I realized that I couldn't get enough air to breathe, and so on, and also that more and more people were surrounding me. All of a sudden, I heard a doctor. He was the doctor on duty there, who was shouting very loudly, "Now hurry up! Now the doctors have to come here, and the beds here have to be removed," and he gave orders that I was no longer able to hear. I suddenly passed out. I no longer noticed anything. Only once I heard someone saying, very slowly, "Another 5 centimeters. Slowly, still 2 centimeters. That's what I was still hearing after a certain time, but afterwards I no longer heard anything. Then something happened that I can hardly explain even today, and this was something wonderful. I was lying on my back, and I didn't notice that there was something in my throat. I must have been intubated, and I didn't notice that. And now I was seeing beautiful colors, all pastels, all kinds of colors, rising upwards from my head, and I physically didn't feel myself anymore. I didn't feel I was in bed, nor did I feel anything else having to do with my body. So somehow I realized that this was the end of me. This was nothing but wonderful. During the time when my end came closer, I didn't think of anyone, not even of my beloved wife. I was no longer able to do this because I was just very light, like cotton wool. I was in the air, seeing all these colors, and that's how I experienced this. Do you have the impression that you were outside your body in this situation? I no longer had a body. That's true. I was completely free, completely light, comparable to cotton wool. That is very light. But there were also these colors. Somehow I still knew beforehand. Now I'm dying. But that's rather nice, isn't it? And did you hear something at that point in time? Nothing really. I just realized now my life comes to an end. That's it. And that's what I also still realized then. And all these beautiful colors that are almost impossible to describe. But I no longer heard the employees, nor the doctors, nor anything else. It was then clear to me, now you are going away. Until, of course, the colors had disappeared. Whether they would still have been there, I don't know. At least as far as I was concerned, I was suddenly no longer there. But what had happened previously, I must have witnessed for about 5 to 10 minutes. I can't tell the exact time. And I thought to myself, oh, how beautiful it all is. I didn't miss anybody, and I no longer thought about anything. You saw the colors, and then you had a feeling of happiness while doing it. Yes, I really was. That was a great thing, not what was leading up to it, but what suddenly followed. And this was something for me, it's almost unbelievable. I wasn't myself anymore, and I no longer felt anything of my physical self either, neither a hand, nor head, nor anything else, because this new state was just terrific to look at. And Walter, how did you get back from this state of being? All this must have happened about 7 o'clock in the evening. And when the beautiful experience was finished, I no longer noticed anything at some point. So I wasn't conscious at all then. I couldn't think. I was then no longer able, thinking that I had died. I only was able to have this thought at the point in time when I was seeing all the beautiful colors. And now, in the next moment, I didn't notice anything. Because I was in a coma, or whatever condition the doctors put me in, the next morning, around 8 o'clock, I woke up from coma in the emergency room, where I saw a kind of blue light, which usually is constantly to be seen there. I then noticed that there were people standing around me, and so I saw some heads only very faintly. And suddenly I heard someone saying, "Mr. Steck, Mr. Steck," and apparently there was some reaction from me. "You can wake up now." Then again, "Mr. Steck, you can wake up. Everything has gone well. We have already spoken to your wife on the phone. She knows that you are fine. You still have to stay here a little longer. Thereafter, you will be brought back to your room." And I then suddenly understood again all of this. When I then regained consciousness and was more awake, a physician's assistant came to me saying, "Mr. Steck, when we said to you that you could wake up, you replied, 'I can't wake up anymore. I've died.'" And to this day, I can't explain how this could have come about. What impact did this exceptional experience have on your life? A wonderful one. Not in relation to what happened before and what happened afterwards. It rather was the experience with these colors and the feeling of dying, where I was then really convinced that I was going to die. I have always been a person with a positive attitude toward life, or let's say, almost always. But this experience was shaping me even more positively, and what I feel is a huge sense of gratitude. And when you think back to this experience, are you still afraid of dying? No, once I am allowed to die like this, then that's just wonderful. I am not religious, but I do have a faith somehow, maybe in a sublime power. These hikes we are often undertaking, now again during this season, I feel them sometimes to be a kind of beautiful worship service, so that I have always had the feeling that there was a higher power. And this is a feeling that has intensified for me since this experience. No, I'm not afraid of death, but I'm aware that you can have a lot of pain before dying. That's what I'm well aware of, but that's just also part of it. But if I'm allowed to leave the way I was allowed to experience it, it's something wonderful, and I believe that there is a sublime power. We had our golden wedding anniversary this year, and we've actually always had a good relationship. And this has even intensified because of this experience. Also, just because I'm thankful that I'm still here, I have really great good friends, and this is something that has intensified too. I appreciate life more than anything, and I also appreciate that I am still allowed to live here in peace and contentment. And in a quiet moment, or when I go to bed, or when I wake up at night, I sometimes think, if I am really allowed to leave like this, and I have also shared this insight with other people, just only thinking positively is the way that life will turn out to be positive for everyone, as well as for me one day. So I am not afraid of death, but I don't believe that there will be no pain at all when you are dying, because there can be pain, depending, of course, on what you die of. Walter, thank you very much for the interview. It has been a great pleasure for me.